Any of you that watch my channel are spiritually inclined, so that's probably why you're interested in astrology and other types of metaphysics. When you turn on the news, you probably sit there scratching your head wondering, what the heck is going on? It seems that the world has really lost its sense of purpose. There's a lot of difficulties between nations. There's difficulties between people. And recently, I've even been noticing from a lot of my clients, there's a lot of problems even in workplaces. It just seems like people are getting more divided. People are having more issues. People just can't get along. So, what is this? Well, there's something called Kali Yuga. And I wanted to talk about that today because Kali Yuga represents a time of very difficult karma. And that's the period we're in on a more macro level. So that's what I'm going to be explaining today. For those of you that are interested in my channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. This video in particular is more of a teaching video, but I do monthly predictions. I do readings on celebrity, royal family, and also just astrological concepts we'll be talking about on my channel. So make sure you follow me. Also, if you guys are interested in a private reading, check down below. Those can be purchased through my website, and it always helps what I do to purchase those. So thank you very much, those of you that have gotten those readings. Also, if you're interested in some healing meditations to help deal with some of the heavy karma you may have, check out my new channel, Thor Spirit Teachings. They're free meditations that you can listen to, and I hope that they help you quite a bit because I did put a lot of love and devotion into those meditations. So let's talk about Kali Yuga because you may have heard about it, especially those of you that have been in like metaphysical circles. You've probably heard the term thrown around. So Kali Yuga is essentially an aeon of time where people are lacking dharma. So people are after the base needs or base desires. So when we're talking about spirituality, there's this idea of if you're ruled by the five sense pleasures, you're essentially very attached to this earth. And a lot of spiritual teachers talk about the necessity to go inward and not be so focused on the outward sensations or pleasures or things we chase after that are represented by the body. So let's go ahead and I'll show you a little bit more of what Kali Yuga is about in this presentation I made for all of you. So essentially, Kali Yuga is a deceptive time to live in. And so I made a few examples of if you're a more spiritually inclined person, like many of you are, many of you were probably have past lives as very spiritual people, and you had past lives in different ages, which were more golden ages and more spiritual ages. So to be born in Kali Yuga, it's a really stark contrast from some of the past lives you've had. Okay, that's why you're looking on the news and you're going, what the heck is going on? Why do people have no moral compass anymore? Because it's in stark contrast from a lot of your personal your lives. So many of you might not be aware, but you're actually born with either a more angelic nature or more demonic nature. And it's based on your past lives and your mental tendencies and your samskaras. So if you've lived a lot of lives where you've been a very bad person, these negative samskaras are really going to be affecting you in this lifetime. And you might be born with a more demonic nature. Some of you have lived very spiritual lives and you're born with more of an angelic nature. So be born in the Kali Yuga is going to be more of a difficult experience. You're not used to living in an age of deception. So basically, Kali Yuga, there's a lack of empathy in the world. So those of you that have spiritual lifetimes, you were born with this sense of empathy. Maybe you kind of intuitively knew, it's not right to harm people. It's not right to hurt people's feelings. And you knew that innately. But then you grew up in this world where it seemed something was off. So I'm explaining to you, I'm validating what you went through, those of you that are empathic watching this. So, this Kali Yuga world that we're living on, people are focused mainly on worldly pursuits. For example, pleasure, money, greed, impressing the Joneses. Who is ever in their social circles. You'll see There's the old cliche of the neighbors, someone buys a boat and then the neighbor has to buy a better boat. So that's the age we're living in. We're living in this really competitive age. They even tell you competition is good. If you outcompete somebody at the expense of someone, it's a good thing. You're seen as a good business person. Okay. And there's a lack of moral compass with people. Observe that people don't all live by the old maxim, do no harm. There's some people in Kali Yuga, they're not born with that sense. They're not born with the idea of do not harm people. So that's something more of you that are born with this angelic nature to be aware of. Also, dishonesty during Kali Yuga is a way of life. So from politicians to corporate leaders who take no accountability for their actions, you're going to get a lot of denials, and it literally is a way of life during Kali Yuga. So if now you might be kind of putting the puzzle pieces together, like, okay, this is starting to make sense. We're in this dark age right now. There's no dharma. So when you're watching people, they're living out a script. They're living out this script of deception of the Kali Yuga. So a little bit about what Kali Yuga is. It's a period of darkness. It's anti-dharma. And we've actually been in Kali Yuga for a long time, and people don't know that. People think it's like a recent thing, and people think we're getting out of it soon. But according to the Puranas, we're not at all. So according to Puranas, Kali Yuga started when Lord Krishna died in 3102 BCE, and we are going to be in Kali Yuga until, look at that, 428,899 CE. So it's a very long Yuga. Now, when we're talking about Kali Yuga, we're talking about the demon Kali, not the goddess Kali. That's something to be aware of. Some people think it's the goddess Kali. There's a demon named Kali that it's named after. Now, something to keep in mind is that the Kali Yuga isn't necessarily, complete pandemonium throughout the 400,000 years. It's like anything. It's just like the stock market. So there's going to be ups and downs during the Kali Yuga. Okay, so right now it appears that we're kind of going into a downhill portion of Kali Yuga. So in the graph, the overall graph of Kali Yuga, we're going down, probably slightly down, but then there might be a little bit of an uptick for a little bit. So I don't want you to think it's complete pandemonium craziness for the 400,000 years. There's different times where it might seem a little better, and then times where it gets worse. Let me go back to the slideshow because this is so important to show you. The other descriptions are characteristics of Kali Yuga. I really want to try to help you all understand. Okay. So Kali Yuga, people are mostly interested and focused outwardly on material desires, lust, physical beauty, and ego. So the ego basically rules. Okay. So you'll notice there's an emphasis on physical appearance. When I get a lot of clients talking about the dating world is like really crazy right now. Like people are just focused on like, are you attractive and how much money do you make? Literally, that's all they care about. So that's really being shown. That's Kali Yuga. That's Kali Yuga. So it's hard when you're a spiritual person. You have to go places where there's going to be other spiritual people. Like if you're dating or something. I'm just using that as an example. You also might notice that even in your workplaces, I'm calling it the rise of sociopaths in all areas of society. So romantic relationships, leaders, workplace colleagues, and these are people who lack any moral direction, and they essentially manipulate people for their own ends. So remember, I told you at the beginning of this video, I told you that people are born with demonic or angelic natures. So there are people that are born with more sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, and those people walk among us. And they look at situations on how do they exploit whatever situation. So if you're a very empathic person and you come from a Satya Yuga, your last lifetime was in a Satya Yuga, it's very easy to be taken advantage by someone who's, fully entrenched in Kali Yuga. Now, the way to remedy this is to become aware of this. Once you realize you're in Kali Yuga and you kind of realize the terrain you're in, then you can better navigate the terrain you're in. And when you're following dharmic principles, even if you're in Kali Yuga, the dharmic principles, when you follow them, they are always going to help you no matter what age you're in. All right, so let's go back to the slide here. The other thing I wanted to bring up with Kali Yuga is the merchant class. During Kali Yuga, the merchant class, or what we would call like Wall Street, people that have money, basically run the world. And that's not what a dharmic world is supposed to be run like. You see, in the Vedic scriptures, the Brahmins, or those that are full of wisdom and ethics and not concerned about money per se, are supposed to be running society. So in a perfect society, it would be, I think even one of the Greek philosophers talked about this, like what did the wise philosopher king. So in a perfect society, we would have philosopher kings running it. And so in ancient India, they would have called them the Brahmins. So really, those are the people supposed to be running the world. There's supposed to be a group of wise people who actually look at the benefit of society, and they're not really concerned about the business interest, even though they might take that into account. They're concerned about the collective. Right now, with the merchant class, this is anti-dharma because it just shows that essentially, people that have just money as their main concern are running the world, which is causing an increase of suffering around the world. Okay. Now, the highest purpose of a person during Kali Yuga will be obtain money. Okay. And people will be unhappy during Kali Yuga because they are not following their dharmas anymore. So, like, even when they do follow what Kali Yuga wants you to do, you won't be happy because only dharma leads to happiness. So more and more as Kali Yuga takes hold and more people follow the principles of Kali Yuga, which is just following greed and just following lust. I know I'm kind of laughing in a cynical way, but the more unhappy they are and the more and more disunity is, formed. So it is a time of people being deluded. It's also, and I find this very interesting, if you look at the bottom of the slide here, people will be deluded and think that the intellect alone, and I put technology saves. So many of you might be aware of, there's this like movement of people trying to achieve immortality by like merging with machines. And this is a little bit weird because it's almost like they're thinking that you still have to go outwardly and it's through the intellect that you're going to be happy. Maybe if we just outsmart this, we'll be happier. But the ancient sages told us we need to go inward to find our happiness. We need to go inward, not outward. Technology is okay. Technology helps a lot, but you need to be balanced. So that's the thing. In a golden age, you have to be balanced with everything. Technology and going inward and spirituality are just as important. So some of you might be wondering, okay, well, Thor, it sounds like, what are we going to do? We're in Kali Yuga. It sounds pretty messed up. Well, I would say it's kind of like that book by Charles Dickens. It's called A Tale of Two Cities. And the first line of that book is, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And so Kali Yuga, even though it might feel bad for a lot of you that are very spiritually inclined, it's actually a good time for consciousness in a way. And I'll tell you why. Many people who may have not had very spiritual lifetimes, what they see during Kali Yuga is essentially what happens is things get so bad during Kali Yuga that it actually wakes them up. They actually start asking themselves questions. There's got to be a better way than this. And that's when it actually wakes people up to Dharma and Dharmic principles. So Kali Yuga has a purpose. Its purpose is to wake people up. Its purpose is to try to wake people up, bring about more awareness. But those of you that are awake, might be having a difficult time. Now, the way to really journey through Kali Yuga is, I would first tell you to shut off the news, but all of the spiritual principles that we have from these golden ages that tell us to meditate, bhakti yoga, that tell us to basically follow our spiritual principles are going to be the way that you still maintain your happiness, and also following your dharma. So it is important to look at your astrology chart, look at what is your life purpose. When you're living your life purpose, even if you don't have the most money, let's say, you're going to be the most happy because that's your dharma. And that's what makes happiness abound when you're following your dharma. So I hope that you were all able to get a little bit out of this. This was just kind of a beginning explanation of what Kali Yuga is, so you can kind of get an understanding. But that's the world we're living in. And there's a lot of false light people kind of coming out like they have for thousands of years, kind of like promising that, oh, there's like this golden, there's these people that are going to save us, or there's this people that are going to save us, like just wait another year, just wait another year. So what I want to tell you is, no, we're in Kali Yuga. This is always going to be, and we're still in samsara. This is still always going to be a challenging world, even if we make small improvements to it. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.